Some funny stories please, as I need cheering up. Here is mine. Similar story here. My cat is quite old now and has never caught or killed anything bigger than a bug. Last summer I was working upstairs and heard a noise. Went downstairs and my living room is absolutely covered in feathers and there's a bird lying on his back with my cat towering over it. Yelled and then quickly had to switch to praising. My cat, she doesn't know any better, at which point my partner comes downstairs to find the carnage. I picked up my cat and we shut my partner in the living room with the bird. He tries to pick up the bird, but of course, as soon as he tries, the bird freaks out and flies into the wall. Once he's got the bird, he puts it outside to see if it'll fly away. 20 minutes later, it starts hailing yup in the middle of summer and the bird hasn't moved. So I run outside with a fairly large container, think cake box, but plastic, and place it over the top of the bird to try and keep it safe. 2 hours later, the hailing stopped, so I went out to remove the container to find the bird on its side, dead. After that we researched how best to deal with a captured bird, just leave them alone, and luckily the next time it happened, the bird was fine. So I was on the train coming home from a solo holiday in Dover and Manchester. I had booked my train seat in advance and knew where my seat was. I get on the train and there are 4 women sat in the booth. One sat on my seat. I say, "Excuse me, you're on my seat," and she full on ignores me, doesn't look at me, respond to me, nothing. I should add, the train is packed. There is no seats available and people are standing up everywhere, so I, being queen petty that I am, stand right next to the seat and begin to tap on the back of the seat. Just asterisk tap asterisk, and she's still ignoring me, but I do not move. Do not speak, just look at her and asterisk tap asterisk. None of her friends are saying anything. It's very intense and awkward. And this goes on for a couple of stops. She eventually gets off the train, and so does 2 of her friends. Once I sat down the other woman, who was not with her, when "I'm so sorry, I never said anything." I said, "It's fine." I got my seat in the end, and we get to chatting and chat the whole time up. There winds up to be a massive stag night, who are all, well and truly pished. Singing, dancing, and having a great time. It put me in a good mood because they were a barrel of laughs. At one point one of the workers came up and said, "Guys, you're being too loud. You need to stop," and one of them goes, "Lads, silent disco." And they all dance without music or making a noise. Eventually they get off at another stop down the line. And someone else jumps on across the aisle from us. We apologize for the group of guys slowing down the train. Start chatting with her as well, and all 3 of us get off at the same stop. We all agreed to stay in contact, and we still meet up every 3 to 4 months to catch up with each other, and almost went to Amsterdam until COVID hit. This November will be our 6th year of knowing each other and being train buds. My mother is super afraid of mice. One year on Boxing Day, a mouse got into living room. Pretty sure one of the cats brought it in. My mother, in her fancy party clothes, climbed onto a step stool, while me, my then partner, and my dad were trying to catch the mouse to avoid it continuing to run under furniture. I used the new encyclopedia my parents had gotten us for Christmas, absolutely dating us here. This was in the 90s, to build barriers around the bookcases, etc. My dad managed to topple over the tree. Very German. Real tree with water in the tree holder and actual candles on it. Setting part of the carpet on fire. Water from the tree holder on the wooden floor. Just absolute pandemonium. For several hours, there was a hunt for the mouse while my mother stood on the step stool. We couldn't find the mouse, but later that evening someone opened the door to the terrace, which was one of those heavy sliding doors, and the mouse got caught in the sliding mechanism and got smeared all over it. Beautiful. I worked out in Egypt for a while. 3 shortish stints. The second time I was there, I had a dreadful case of the shits, which persisted for months even after getting home. I blame it on that French restaurant in the Old Cataract. I was bouncing around between sites, but ended up back in Cairo and got the sudden urge to shit whilst in the office. The toilets were weird, a very large building with urinals on one side and cubicles on the other. It stunk to high heaven, as the tongue were 30°C, and they were busy toilets. So I rush into an empty cubicle and basically the world drops out of my arse. The only problem is it won't stop and it's very, very noisy, which made me laugh out loud. Then I realized I wasn't alone. There were at least 5 people snoring, and it had taken me over a week to finally twig where the workers that kept going AWOL in the afternoon were going ... Really? You go to the toilets to sleep ... It stinks rotten, and it's 30°C, so my arse is flapping away, and I get the proper giggles. I'm laughing my head off but paranoid about waking up the sleepers, so I decide to bend forward and bite the inside of my elbowy arm to try stop laughing ... But the combination of laughter and the bending over just makes it worse, and I literally can't control my bowels at all. And all sorts of noises are happening, and it sounds like someone trying to drown an elephant. I lose control of my bowels completely and can't control my laughter in any way, shape, or form, and I've given in to the torrent of liquid shit. Huge parpy farts and laughter, and the delirium of 30°C, and the dreadful smell in the toilets. I must have been in there a good 45 minutes. God knows what the sleepers thought. We have the dead duck incident in our family. My husband was driving me to work in the next town when I was heavily pregnant and extremely emotional. We saw a duck in the road that had been hit by a car but was still alive, although badly injured. In all my pregnant glory, I shouted at him to stop the car, went running up the busy road with a blanket and scooped up the bleeding, flapping, injured duck and put it in the boot of the car. I made him promise me through my tears that as soon as he dropped me off at work, he would take it to the vets. So he dropped off his hysterical, sobbing wife, then started Googling the vets, but discovered none were open yet. He decided to wait in the car park of the local country park until they opened. Checked on the duck. It was dead. Then the question of what to do with a dead duck in the boot of the car on a hot day. So he put it in the bin at the country park car park and drove off praying nobody was checking their CCTV. Once, at an old job, I had some flakes in my desk drawer. I left them there when I went on holiday and promptly forgot about them. About a month later I was peckish, so went to fish them out. And they had all been eaten and pens put in the wrappers. I fairly loudly said WTF and much laughing ensued. I threw the pens at the bloke who had eaten them in a light-hearted way and was told they had been waiting ages for me to find it and I had taken so long. The replacements had also been eaten. Got some revenge though. The chap who did it fell for the license to grill April Fool's joke in the paper because he was reading the wrong day and didn't twig. Came into the office seriously upset that he would need to get a license for his BBQ. Oh, here we go then. So I was on holiday with the lads in Prague a couple years back. I go down to breakfast at the hotel with my mate, and we're happily chatting away. The door to the breakfast area has 2 glass doors at the entrance. So I'm walking in front, as it was a narrow corridor, and the doors were around a small corner. Up some steps and into the dining area. I turn the corner, and just as I do I'm looking back towards my mate and chatting. I turn my head forward, then whack ... forehead first into the glass doors, which were locked. On the other side of the door is a family, a dad, mom, and 2 kids, whose faces all darted up to see me recoil in shock at just headbutting this unsuspecting door for apparently no reason. Of course, I found this hilarious. And so did my mate. So we go around the other side and enter the dining area. All the tables are full, apart from the one that was directly in front of these glass doors. No one else but this family saw my unprovoked attack on the door, and I had no choice but to sit next to them. They didn't speak a word of English, but we communicated through what can only be described as periodic howls of laughter for our entire breakfast. When we stopped laughing, someone on that table would start giggling, which would set me off, and we'd all end up erupting into a chorus of contagious laughter. This went on for about 15 minutes, and for the rest of our time there that family would give me a friendly nod and smile whenever we passed each other. 10/10 would headbutt again. When I was fairly new to the UK, I got a text from a mate from back home. Him and his girlfriend at the time were going to visit London for a weekend. Would I like to meet for a pint? I was of course happy to, and took them to a local pub. The rugby was on. Everyone was quite invested, so we decided to watch it as well. I say watch it, but the thing was that none of us had any idea about the rules or how it's played. So we're sitting there, trying to figure it out, and we get to a point where we're wondering whether it's played in quarters, or halves, or something else. All of a sudden my mate turns to me and goes, "I figured it out. It's played in thirds." I was like ... what? How AY? And he, all excited, points to the screen and goes, "Look, it says it right there, in the top right corner. BBC." And yes, he was serious. It was the combination of his sincere excitement about having figured it out and the obliviousness that did me in. Very mild in comparison. Was flying with my sister at the time. We decide to go to the loo before we queue for boarding. I came out the loose quicker. There was probably a queue in the ladies, so I was waiting outside the bit where the loose are for her to be done. Whilst waiting, a lady walks out with a young boy about 2. Young boy runs up to a man and yells out loudly, "Daddy, Mommy did a poo." I did that silent laugh thing, and the mum saw me. I hope she understood I was laughing at her kid's faux pas, rather than the knowledge of what she had just done in the loose. A few years ago, we were out at a pub having a few drinks. My mate, call him Dan, told us someone was going to meet us there, so great. Someone else to get around in. She call her Emma arrived, a very good-looking woman. Dan immediately got up and gave her a little hug, then offered her his seat at the table. We all grabbed a food order, and I kept noticing Dan was looking at Emma and listening intently when she spoke. "Oh, he has a crush," I thought to myself, and knowing Dan is very self-conscious and nervous around women, I thought I'd give him a nudge. Few rounds down, and the stories are flying around. I keep talking about how Dan was a great guy. Times he's helped me out, full on building him up. Emma kept listening and smiling at Dan like she was impressed. "This is going well for you, buddy. More drinks," and I finally just said to Dan, "Dude, why don't you ask her for her number? She seems keen and cue my imminent shame and destruction." Emma was Don's mom. She looked incredible for being in her 40s, and he was nervous because he was expecting us to embarrass him. Alcohol is amazing for drawing out embarrassment. Not really funny, but an animal rescue story. I once saw a woman and her dog being chased by another little puppy. I pulled my car over to help and grabbed a jacket. Running towards them, I noticed it wasn't a dog, but a fox cub. I chucked my coat over it and scooped it up. I then spoke to the woman who lived in the area and said the mother had abandoned it, and it seemed totally unfazed by humans or anything else by that matter. I called a fox rescue who sent someone to come and grab it off me, and had the pleasure of cradling it in my arms for an hour whilst we waited. Turns out it had a parasite. Don't worry, it wasn't dangerous for me, which had eaten away at its flight or fight response, rendering it completely tame. The look of confusion as dog walkers walked past smiling and looking at what they thought was my puppy, to realize it was actually a little fox. I think there's a picture of it on my profile somewhere. We used to have a built-in wine rack in our kitchen cupboard. One evening, I can hear scrabbling and whining from the kitchen and go in to find out Spaniel with its head stuck in the fucking thing, trying to pull itself out and choking itself on the process. So all hell breaks loose. My wife is screaming, trying to stop the dog choking. I'm panicking, trying to find a saw. I find one and start sawing completely the wrong bit of the wine rack. Then I get the right bit and the dog shits itself, copiously and enthusiastically, all over the floor and us. I slip in the poo, yank backwards and snap the wine rack, and the dog is free. She then sticks her head straight back in to grab the M&M that she was trying to reach and runs off, leaving my wife and I lying on the kitchen floor crying and covered in dog shit. I fixed the wine rack. She did the same thing again a month later. We got rid of the wine rack. I'd been having a stressful time at work, and so I bought a session in a flotation tank as a treat. I was leaving work early and totally rubbing it in to my colleagues about how relaxed I was going to feel after the session, followed by good wine and a takeaway. I get to the spa, undressed, and into the tank. I start floating, and it feels like bliss. For 2 minutes until the fire alarm went off. So I get out of this tank, and I'm trying to get dressed while soaking wet, with the spa attendant frantically banging on the door because they get fined if everyone isn't out by the time the fire brigade turn up. Eventually, I'm the last one out, and I join the large crowds outside from the spa, restaurant downstairs, and adjoining businesses. I thought I'd wait to go back in, but then I can see people looking at me. The reason you float is due to copious amounts of salt, and I hadn't been able to shower it off, so I had white crusty patches all over my face and hair. Well, I'd had enough at that point, so I just left to go home for my wine. Worst thing was, I was too embarrassed to go back to have the session later, because when I got home I realized I didn't have my knickers on, and they weren't in my bag. I'd left them behind.